our social media and on the Arts and Letters website for ODU. And today we will be having a conversation on art and social justice with our scholar in residence, Ted Ellis. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Mariah. My name is Ted Ellis. I am a full-time professional artist for a little bit more than 25 years. Presently, I'm working as scholar in residence at Old Dominion University, and we have a three-part, um, um, how you want to say that, level of engagement. One is student, one is community, and the other one is fund development. And it's all centered around art and social justice. So we're going to begin this conversation with talking about the next steps. Where are we going from here? And that conversation will start with what we're going to talk about Juneteenth.
Well, first we're going to start with, of course, some questions for you specifically, and then from there we'll move into the future of art and social justice, and specifically Artivism, which will be defined later. And then we'll go into your involvement with Juneteenth celebrations.
Perfect.
Awesome. So the first question that also, please submit questions throughout. We will be answering questions at the end of the event. We want to give everybody time to ask questions. So please be excited to send in your questions. So specifically for you, what brought you to art and what is your overall journey to being an artist full time?
Yeah, well, my professionally has been about 25 years, but I've always had the inclination to want to draw and doodle at a very early age. Um, did that during high school for the most part. When we were students, we had the opportunity to create murals and on the school wall, and most of those murals were speaking about our journey as students in the future. So, what does that look like graduating? And so we had all these wonderful images. We had the students to also the other students at the school to give us their ideas, and that was where it really solidified the importance of visual literacy and storytelling. And through, past that point, I went to school. I majored in chemistry, worked as an environmental chemist for 8 years, and decided to put that aside and pursue my passion in art. And for 25 years, I've been pictorially documenting African American history and culture. And that led me up to this point to work as scholar in residence at Old Dominion University. I had my exhibition, 400 Years of Chronicling African American History, showing resiliency, showing struggle, showing a full narrative of over 400 years. So from slavery through Reconstruction, through Jim Crow, through civil rights, through the age of Obama, and to where we are right now with this social unrest here in the United States.
Awesome. Yeah, I see some of your art behind you, specifically some related to George Floyd. And I believe I see Kamala Harris in the back. Shout out.
Right.
So the next question is, what influences your art style? And if you have any inspiration that comes from other artists?
So I'm an emotive artist. So, what I feel is pretty much what I paint. I would say it's like a gumbo style. It's a little bit of everything, like gumbo, it comes out all right. So you have a little impressionism, a little realism. The figurative images that I place in my art is for that narrative. It's a bit folk on top of that. Um, a lot of artists of inspiration. If I look at Monet, if I look at John Singer Sargent, I look at Elizabeth Catlett, Romare Bearden, Henry O. Tanner. Those are artists that have been very influential in my ability to speak through my art.
Awesome. And speaking of influence and being involved with other artists, have you had the chance to collaborate with any?
So specifically, not recently, outside of exhibitions and stuff, very early on when we did our murals, when we collaborated on ideas, that was a lot of enthusiasm and energy. I welcome to have that opportunity in the near future. Hopefully, at Old Dominion University, we'll get this opportunity to do a community mural that we can have, student and community engagement and we could, speak through art. So would love to be able to create that kind of opportunity on campus or within the community.
Yes, I agree. I think that would be an amazing opportunity for artists on campus and artists in the community. So, speaking of art in the community, what is the importance of your art and what are you trying to accomplish with your pieces?
So if, even if I if I go back to 20 plus years, you know very much intentional and unapologetic on telling that story of African American history, culture, and lifestyle. So if we look at my series of Buffalo Soldiers of African Americans in the legal profession, African Americans in the medical profession, my imageries of education, very, very profound in the sense that it tells a story. Visual literacy is so compelling. And so with that said, moving forward, I thought it was very important in a critical time to capture this moment when we're dealing with these social inequalities, racial inequality here in America, and I want to be able to speak through that and use my art as a means of awareness and conversation, so that we could be intelligent about this, we could be civil about this, and making constructive change. And so, Old Dominion University gave me that opportunity as scholar in residence to partner and participate with those individuals and the student body and faculty body on campus to say, let's really look at the problems that we're having, and let's find constructive ways of providing a solution that will be equitable for everyone. And so we're in that process right now.
Awesome. Yes. So, of course, we're talking about impact. That is the basis of this conversation. So, how does your art impact classroom and corporate spaces?
So that's a great question. What it does, art is a stimulus. It you engage it, you look at it, you reflect upon it, you think about it, and you converse about it, and you sometimes, it can be individualized, or it could be in a group. And so what's so wonderful about a student environment is that you get classroom participation, and so everybody gets a chance to share their thoughts and their ideas centered around these images. And these images, when you look at them, you either have a personal experience, or you may know nothing about it. So you have an inquisitive idea, you have an ask to want to know. And so that's where the conversation begins, and the enlightenment, and that moment of curiosity, is appeased. And that's such a wonderful thing with this resource, this that's called art. Particularly in the classroom, it works effectively well inside of museums because their programming is geared toward that, to share this space, to provide a level of enlightenment, that you come away informed. You equip with making a better decision. And so when we look in this space, at school and in museums and even inside of corporations, there's a culture. And culture, sort of, it's how we operate or how we move within this space, how we act within this space. And so if we have this sensibility of how people live, in different communities, and everybody brings something to this cultural environment, if that's appreciated, then we're much more effective and efficient in that space and getting along with each other. And so art plays a critical role in messaging and communicating and solving those problems that we typically have centered around race.
Yes. And how do you think that art can move through different advocacy spaces? Because when we speak
It's
of advocacy spaces, sometimes we're thinking, oh, this is the Congress and this is the House of Representatives, but there's so many other unintentional advocacy spaces that exist outside of the classroom.
restaurants.
Yes.
I mean, we could, you mentioned when we had the conversation yesterday about the ice cream gallery on Instagram. And what a fun way to engage where folks could talk and share and learn about different things in different places. And that's a virtual level of engagement. And so, advocacy happens, it happens in the church. It happens on at the bus depot. When you have a thought, an idea, you see something, and you want to comment, you want to comment intelligently about this. I mean, that's what we want to do. That's part of the process of advocacy and activism. And you're going to get to artivism down the road in our conversation. But how do we bring about this kind of awareness? We're in the business of problem solving. How do we make life better for us, that's sustainable over time? So we got to get past these biases, past these prejudices, past these indifferences, so that we could share this space, in a way that we feel free and unencumbered that you're going to be assaulted or attacked. So we should have the kind of behavior that's modified in a way that, I didn't have that kind of experience, but that's interesting. Can you tell me about that? How was your life lived, or your family's life lived, 30, 40 years ago? How did that impact, others in that space? And we can move and build, a better future in this conversation, in this space of enlightenment. And art definitely provides that opportunity in advocacy. And so museums is a place for advocacy. It's a place for being a social change agent, just like academic institutions, universities and schools and colleges. I mean, that's why we go there, so that we can learn, we can be better informed, we can make better decisions, that life becomes a little bit easier. We lift the level of human capital through our experiences of enlightenment.
Yes. And you recently got your master's in museum studies from Southern University in New Orleans, right?
Yes, that was, what you don't want to stay in school forever, because it's intense, in graduate studies. But it was like having my hand in a cookie jar, learning about African culture, the influence of West African culture, for one thing. When we talk about the drum and how it impacted the world globally,
Yeah.
as an instrument of communication, of rhythm. How do we get in sync with rhythm? Dance is so important because we're communicating when we're dance. And there's a happiness in dance. It's like even in food culture and stuff, it's the same feel and rhythm that passes through, that people can recognize and appreciate holistically across the board. Even when there's no communication or connection, it brings us together. And so, as a creative, it's almost organic to do the advocacy piece, because you're already trying to speak and touch people in a way that informs them, and it heals them. And so, I think we're right on point with what is happening with the programming at the Barry Museum, at the Gordon Galleries, at the Goo Theater, highlighting the importance of art and culture, bringing that to the forefront, making people feel comfortable, in their space, in their shared space, so that we're able to participate
Yeah.
and gather. And that's typically what we do as human beings.
Yeah. And speaking of gathering and community, there is, of course, Juneteenth coming up, in addition to the anniversary of Tulsa, the Tulsa riots. What are you working on next, and how is it going to tie into Juneteenth and the anniversary of Tulsa?
So, 2015 was a phenomenal year for me with Juneteenth. I had a chance to take my Juneteenth Freedom exhibition at the U.S. Capitol, on the House and the Senate side. Received some proclamations, and got a whole bunch of recognition, for the importance of Juneteenth. And when we think about Juneteenth, we think about 1865, the ratification of the 13th Amendment. But that was also when General Gordon Granger came to Galveston, Texas, with Executive Order number 3, and said cease and desist slavery is over with, and that happened in Galveston, Texas, and that was 2 years, after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. The unfortunate thing in 1865, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and we had Andrew Jackson to come on in, who was a staunch segregationist and was repealing a lot of the advances that were made during Reconstruction for those who were enslaved. And you know, you know, and I go there because um, the efforts of 1865 was the fight for social justice, for equality, for the opportunity to vote, to be recognized as a citizen in the United States. And here we are right now. So, the good thing, the state of Virginia has recognized Juneteenth as a holiday. Um, the state of Delaware, where I will be at with the Delaware Library Association, for Juneteenth. I'll actually be unveiling a piece that they commissioned me for, as well as an exhibition there. So, Juneteenth is critical and very important as it relates to the importance of freedom here in America for those who have been disadvantaged and disallowed for so long. So, that speaks volumes that the country is moving forward, is recognizing Juneteenth. At some point, it will be recognized as a federal holiday. That's what we talk about with the efforts of inclusion and equity for everyone, particularly for folks of color, African Americans, and people of brown hue here in America. So,
And of course, the conversation is on art and social justice, and I definitely want to move into the conversation on artivism as a whole. So we know, but I'm going to explain it to everybody, that artivism is a combination of art and activism. So this is where you'll see artists like Ai Weiwei and like Basquiat creating their art. It's art with a social message. So with that, what is artivism to you?
it's about action. It's about taking your passion, as a creative, um, building awareness, for social justice, for environmental justice, for things that we are challenged with inside of our communities that affect our families and our lifestyle. And typically, it's in that space where we're disadvantaged. And so, when I think about Edward Bannister and his wife, who was a nurse, during the 1800s, in Boston, was very active as an artivist. And if I think more recently, during the latter part of the 50s, early part of the 60s and 70s, I look at Elizabeth Catlin and Samela Lewis, who were artivists, very actionable around social justice and racial equality, and use their creative influence to speak, to act, and to create art that would steer and stimulate folks to think about what was unjust in the United States. And so when we talk about civil protests and using effective means of getting things done, art is an effective form of propaganda that is very useful and very constructive, that will get people to engage. And if their thoughts are racial in a sense that it's not equitable, will give them a chance to pause and question, how they act and what they do, and to change their behavior so that we have a different kind of outcome, that we find that it's okay for all us to live equitably in this space here in America and abroad.
Awesome. Yes. And I also wanted to know, what is the benefit of visual communication as it relates to activism? I am a lifespan and digital
Well,
communication major, so I got to ask the communication questions.
yeah, yeah. So, we are such in a different kind of age that we're visual communicators. Um, writing is almost like a lost art. We need that because it's tactile, and it gives thought from that hand to that paper, from the mind's eye to have critical thinking, to put that down. Let's say we're just so much inundated with information that we take a snapshot with our eyes, we ingest it, and we process it, and we have some thought and some commentary. Visually, it's stimulating. We see evidence in that with those Instagrams, those social media outlets and platform is driven on the visual commentary and the messaging. And so, the sound bites are so short. So you can't write enough in that space to gather people's attention. So we use images. And that's what's so important and so critical, is that we pay close attention to the images that's projected in front of us. Um, Television uses that very effectively in communicating messages, even without words, with images and stuff. It will drive that narrative and and what is important. What do you perceive as important in movies? Think about this: Birth of a Nation. That was to deconstruct the image of those who were enslaved, that put enslaved Africans and black folks, to a subhuman level. That was driven through images. Enough said there that Du Bois and Alain Locke, said we have to reconstruct a whole new image of the Negro, and that was the new Negro. And birth out of that was the Harlem Renaissance, where we use art as a means to effectively construct a positive image of people of color, particularly African Americans. And so advocacy, through images, is critically important.
Yeah, I like that you brought up media as a whole, and specifically Birth of a Nation, because some research by Stuart Hall said that the media representations are a major source of information for society, the world, and its inhabitants. And that is something that is greatly reflected in what we watch, and specifically with the history of Birth of a Nation. And of course, we want to reverse those ideologies that were presented. So when it comes to art, how can art contribute to the sustainability of movement building and campaigning for social and racial justice?
Exhibitions centered around that topic and that discussion, needs to be programmatic.
Yes.
Provided in an academic institution, how do you curriculize that? And so that students can have a level of awareness historically, educationally and artistically. And so, it becomes participatory, and it's immersive, and that's an important piece. There was a wonderful exhibition at the Gordon Galleries, with the photos of students, of faculty members. And when you think about the 20,000 plus student body, that's an international student body, has the largest African American student population in Virginia, in an academic institution at Old Dominion University. And to be very up close and see these images and talk about it. So you had an idea, I mean, some of the students and the faculty members had tattoos on them. Some of the folks were from other parts of the country, and they clothing regalia was quite different and stuff like that. And I had all of these questions, and I wanted to have more conversation. And I thought about if that exhibition was expanded to other university campuses, and having forums and discussions around that. The inclusion piece of the Barry Museum with artists of color. Um, my piece on writing a new history. The STEAM piece. Young African Americans at the chalkboard. The focus on science and technology. Leveraging the creative and critical thinking aspect. The right and left side of the brain is a powerful image. And then I have, NASA astronauts and scientists, and a lot of women that are featured there. And so, a powerful visual narrative, this language, this visual language that is critically important. Sometimes we overlook that, but it is so much strength and so much healing. and so much information there. And for 25 years professionally, I've been in that space, unapologetically, pushing that forward, showing the value that African Americans have had historically here in the United States, and have not only impacted the United States, but has impacted the world globally. And so, I'm excited about having the opportunity to share, to participate, to collaborate, to push it further and push it forward.
Yeah.
No matter what the challenges are, because I know that there's a need for continual healing here in America and abroad. And creatives bear that responsibility of providing that level of enlightenment and comfort that we need in the human spirit. I would think about, right now, not only with the racial pandemic, but the health pandemic of COVID,
Yeah.
the economic challenges that we have, a tri-pandemic in a sense, the trauma that's placed on the human psyche right now, students, faculty, folks in the community. It's a major burden and task for us to deal with. And so, I want the creatives in our space to realize the power that they have in healing. Our singers, our poets, our dancers, our chefs. That's an art form in healing. How do we put that to the forefront? I can imagine, when we all get vaccinated, the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go to some festival,
Yeah.
some play, some activity, some concert where we gather collectively, and you're going to see at the forefront that there's a creative that's mounting that charge to make us feel good, to enlighten us. That gives us a reason to feel good about ourselves and where we are at that point in time.
Yes. And I like that you were talking about art and healing, because of course it's history and it's a way for us to look back at what we've experienced and also process what we've experienced. But there's also an amazing opportunity for art to act as something that can hold our trauma, our collective trauma, and help us grow. So how do you see art growing us, specifically Black people in the Black community, as we heal from racial trauma, or as we begin the journey of healing from racial trauma?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can easily put on the stereo, some nice music, and that sort of brings us to a place of peace. Um, Being able to have an opportunity to sit, a lot of my artist friends are doing these paint sessions, even with the mask on and stuff, and you find, although that it's a challenge there in that space, but it gives you pause for a minute just to have a moment to enjoy, to reflect, to work through. I want to back up 2005, right after Hurricane Katrina, and some of they took folks and put them on a bus and they brought them into the Houston community, and they were at the Astrodome and the convention center. And for the kids, what they did was to set the kids down with Crayola and paper, and because they were traumatized, they were shocked, they were in a different place, and they were able just to speak through what they had in front of them on a piece of paper, telling their story, and it provided a platform for dialogue and conversation to make a breakthrough. And we need that kind of art. I can imagine, working on this wonderful community mural, and everybody get a chance to paint and speak and reflect, because when you get a chance to participate, you get a chance to share, and you'll be surprised how many stories come out of that. How many memories come, and new memories are formed, and it becomes something that becomes a part of you. And we know this as a fact. When we hear a song, it brings back memories, it takes us back to places sometimes we hadn't even thought about it. And art definitely does that for us. and having an opportunity, chance to engage, to see exhibitions, to hear, to virtually participate, it refreshes us, it renews our spirit, and it gives us a chance to pause, to breathe. Sometimes we're just so much in the moment that we don't get a chance to pause or breathe. And art does that. The creative um, um, experience does that for you.
Yes, and I think that we definitely have needed to pause and breathe now more than ever. Um, and I see this as it relates to Old Dominion University because we'll be doing a themester that will be focusing on art and social justice. So when it comes to the college setting and pausing and breathing in the college space, what does artivism look like at college, and how can young artists be supported on their journey to artivists?
Wow. So we're talking about artivism and futurism,
Yeah.
because I look at the students being the future, and I look at them engaging in that process, and having the authority to take it and own it, and to share their ideas, their enthusiasm, and their energy in this space. Would love to see and have an interest in pushing forward a virtual exhibition. Starting right there at Old Dominion University, and moving through other college campuses where other artivists, young artivists, can share their stories of enlightenment, of social justice and activism through that creative process. So I can imagine that virtual presentation with a young poet, creating a wonderful piece that speaks to right now, the daunting task of pushing forward, through these atrocities, and seeing a better future, and then I could see a dance, that's choreographed, and placed in that virtual space, and then the images, and then this conversation where I could step back and let the young artivists speak, because they need to, they need to express themselves. They need to share with others, because what it does, it humanizes us when that opportunity happens. And so when I'm saying in that space, that's all of us, that's moving beyond just the black and the brown, that is participatory with everyone in our community, everyone on our college campuses. I mean, so that we could begin this process of healing, looking at this Achilles heel, this sore, this cancer, this racial cancer that plagues democracy, that we give it a different way, that we could address these issues of racial injustice, that we can remove that from the way we live, through leveraging the power of art and creativity, and having an opportunity to do a virtual engagement piece where students can make that kind of impact, because the old is going to get older, and the young is going to push forward, and going to bear the responsibility of leadership in our communities, leadership in our corporations, leadership in our institution of advancements, our academic institutions, and in our church. And so the creative will be able to touch every area of enlightenment in those areas, and we'll find a way to contribute constructively to change people's minds and attitudes and behaviors and actions toward each other, that we're more civil and we're more kind, and that we can laugh and we can play and have fun even as adults, and that it's okay, and we can be extremely productive during that time in that space.
Yes, patron Saint Whitney Houston once said, "I believe children are our future. Teach them well, let them lead the way." And speaking of um, interaction with the community, We have a lot of museums in Norfolk. We have the Chrysler Museum, the Barry Art Museum, and then of course, across from the Barry Art Building, we have the Gordon Art Gallery. So how can we encourage students to interact with museums and specifically artivist works in museums?
So, we're still dealing with the COVID issues. So each one of those institutions has made it museum friendly to participate virtually, and they have went beyond their means to create engagement projects that you will find that will be fun, and that it's family oriented. You can individualize that experience, but it's geared toward the family. And their technology is just wonderful. You can actually create a puzzle with art now that they have these engagement elements. They have these what is the seek and find adventures that you can do virtually. I will say make the visit. Now that visit may be a tangible visit where you can walk in that space and see these objects, see these artifacts, see the art, meet the artist, because they'll have those opportunities where they have art lectures. And if not, if you can't physically be there, then visit virtually, and you're going to find that there's a treat. It's almost like finding a gift at the end of the rainbow. That's what museums and cultural centers provide you, that opportunity. That's why they've been around for 100 plus years. Two of your most oldest institutions, or your academic institutions, and your museums. They provide a plethora of opportunity of learning and having fun. And they've gone even further, even when you walk in that space where you can go at and experience the art, you know, and projects. So it's project oriented around the exhibitions that are being featured in those museums. So if there's an exhibition with etchings, there's probably a little space where you can go with the family inside the museum and create a little etching so you can see that process. Now, it may not be as specific as an old master has done, but you will get an idea. On doing etchings or doing a block print, where you would carve out a potato or something like that and
Yeah.
press, in some ink and then press on paper. You get the gist of it. And so, very participatory, very an immersive experience with the museums. And it's there to deal with trauma because it's healthy. It's nourishing. It gives you the cultural nutrition that you need to push forward, to make you a better person. That's what art does when you get involved in it. It's such a great stimuli, and it's you know those it's more than an aspirin, if I could say that. Typically when you have a headache or something like that, you need a Tylenol or an aspirin. That's what museums do for you. They heal the spirit when you get an opportunity to engage. So students, faculty, community members out there, the opportunity for you to feel better, and it's relatively cheap, is to visit the museums. You can do that virtually, and you can physically step into the Barry Museum. That's a state-of-the-art museum, and the Gordon Galleries provide a plethora of opportunities to see the art that they have, to see their collections that's available there. And they've done a great job in taking alternative space and using alternative space, like we did with my exhibition at the Good Theater. And so I tell you, Old Dominion University really has it right. It has provided the students an opportunity to have state of the art engagement opportunities culturally, with the theaters there, with the galleries, and also with the Barry Museum. It's exceptional. It's a leading institution when it searches for the balance of diversity, of inclusion, of equity, and cultural awareness. It's so critical. I'm thankful for having this opportunity as scholar in residence at Old Dominion. And Mariah, and working with you, is so evident in all of it. Just quietly observing seeing your potential, your dedication, putting together a program, and you're working on your graduate degree as well. I applaud you, and I thank you for the terrific job that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And um, this is the last question.
Okay.
So if you have any questions to ask Mr. Ellis, please put them in the chat, or raise your hand, and I'll keep look so you can come off mute and ask. But do you have any words of encouragement for future artivists and the people that will come after you?
Yeah, I do. I think you have to speak truth to power. That's important. That's important. That's how we heal. Be kind to others. Um, create art that not only inspires you but will inspire others. And so even when you're conveying a message, um, if it's one of healing, no matter how hard that conversation with that visual literacy, then do it. Push it forward. You know um, I've been an artist that have traveled, that had challenges in that space, as an African American male, on the highways inside of cities, being stopped by police, being assaulted. But I've always come back to the point of that, um, on de-escalating and knowing what I need to say and how to say it, and using my art effectively in that space. I've always been able to deliver. And because as an artist, you have to have that kind of compassion of others, even when they're wrong, to know that they can change, and you have to use your art to do that. It's not one to make adversarial. Art is not for that. It's one of healing and bringing together, and that's going to always be a work in progress. A work toward excellence in that as an artist, because we're empathetic, and we're channeling all of this, but you gotta be mindful that it has to be constructive, and you have to center yourself and bring it back there. And that's something that I work on, have to work on continuously. It's something that I would advise young creatives to do, and to know and to own that you can make that change, that you can create that ripple effect that can touch others. That's the power of thinking and acting and being a creative, as that you have the ability to make that kind of change, that global change. And I do think and imagine and have a tremendous amount of interest on on when we create that kind of synergy collectively as creatives in this space, for artivism, for activism, for advocacy. How much better the world will be. And so we have a large task at hand as artivists, as creatives, but we can manifest and make the kind of change that's necessary for folks to live a real healthy life, a life of happy longevity in this space, as we continue to move through, where we are and where we're going. So that would be my advice. Own your passion, be purposed in it to help others, and watch you make the change.
Yes, that is great advice. Um, all you artivists out there, take heed. So just some real quick ending notes before we go into audience questions, if there are audience questions. So next fall, we will be having various events centered around social justice and art. So please be on the lookout for more themester events. We will be posting about it on our social media. And of course, the university announcements, you get them every day. So please read them. And if you are an artivist or an artist in general, please reach out to our Instagram, and we will post your art on social
Yes.
media. You can direct message us at ODU Arts Letters. That's ODU Arts Letters, no spaces. ODUARTSLETTERS on Instagram. So hit us up. Now we'll go into audience questions. Does anybody have any questions at all for Mr. Ellis? You can throw them in the chat, or you can raise your hand or just chime in.
Well, Mariah, if I could, since everyone's being a little bit shy, I thought I'd just start off with kind of an easy one because honestly, hello everyone. I'm Amy Motsky-Fawcett and I'm the Strategic Communication and Outreach Coordinator for the College of Arts and Letters. I see a lot of names I know, but just in case, I wanted to let you know who I am. I work with Mariah and with Mr. Ellis, and it's so much fun, as you can probably tell. So I kept thinking of kind of really deep questions throughout the talk, and then Ted, you would answer them. So I'm afraid I don't have any very serious questions as much as I would like to. But I do have I'll ask, I guess, kind of a fun question because I'm interested. I've seen a lot of your art and I've dropped some links in the chat for people to check out your art. But I just want to know, do you have a favorite painting that you've ever?
Oh my goodness.
I know there's so many. It's probably like asking to choose a favorite child, but
So,
much.
wow. Yeah, okay. If I had to choose, probably my Sunday worship, and that's this little old white church, and you have all the church members, getting ready to go to service, and it's on my website. It's called Sunday Worship, but I think by far that's my favorite painting. And I still own my original, so that tells you a lot. Yeah, yeah. So I did that painting over 20 plus years ago. Yeah, but Amy, I've done so many pieces. I mean, jazzy blues would be a great piece. I mean, my journey, from the slave ship to cotton fields to Bourbon to the president of the United States. That's a more recent piece. I mean, I like that because it's the strength and struggle, and it's past till present, going into the future. Um, but overall, if I had to rate, one piece, I grew up in the church, Sunday school, you know, I stay prayed up. That's important. And my strength is channeled through my God and in prayer, and it's got me to this point. And so, um, you know, you know, Sunday worship is it epitomizes everything about my history and my upbringing and my community. So there you have
Awesome. So in the chat, Keith asked, how do you choose what to paint next?
it. That's um you give it much thought. It's not so much of a challenge for me right now because I'm in this mode of using my art to message, social justice, racial equality. I could pivot and pull something back from the past, like I did this strong visual narrative of Plessy versus Ferguson, and I put Judge Harlingen in there, um, the Great Compromise of 1877. These crows, with Jim Crow being ushered in right after Reconstruction, a lot of symbolism in there, and so there's one image that I'm toiling with, and I'm trying to really figure out how I'm going to speak to this constructively. And that's what recently happened with the riot at the U.S. Capitol. What that image looks like. you know how do you message in that and saying that we got to do better, we got to be better, and I'm still digesting that. I'm still processing that so that I can speak through that. But that is one on my mind. I think my inbox flooded when everybody saw that and would say, "Oh gosh, we were just ready to see this next image that you're coming out." But that's going to be it's delicate, it's important. Uh, I don't want it to be divisive, but I want it to be actualized, but I want us to move past that. And so, that's gonna be one of my biggest challenges, moving forward in creating that image. And so now you got a idea of where I'm at. Um, I love painting landscapes and seascapes. I could do that all day long. I initially started doing a lot of seascapes when I was living out in Southern California, very early in my art career in Carmel and Monterey and Santa Cruz and stuff like that. I get so many kind of different impulses. It's not enough time and day for me to sit still and to paint everything that I want to paint. So I got to compartmentalize it, and I got to choose and decide. So hopefully, Keith, that answers your question.
Awesome. Maybe your next piece could be your journey to being an artist as a whole. It's nice to know that you started off as like a landscape artist. I would definitely want to see some of that. Really cool.
Yeah, I've done 25 years is when I officially started business, but prior to that, I mean, Mariah, my abstracts, my portraiture work. I mean, it's just you go through phases as an artist. Picasso in his blue period and stuff. It's I think every artist has a lot of range. It's what they decide to sit still and engage the public with, and so there's a room full, a closet full of art sketches that folks will probably never see that I have. Yeah.
Oh, never see. That's
Well, it's
sad.
just because you gotta figure out how you're gonna present it.
Work.
Yeah.
Do you have a place where we can see your seascape work? Maybe.
Um. No, it's I'm just no. I got a landscape. I can show you a landscape right quick.
Yeah, show us some.
Hold on. Let me see. Let me pull one off the wall.
Thanks, Steph, because I wanted to.
So I'm actually just sitting in my studio upstairs. Let me see if you can we see it?
No.
Oh no. Okay.
Gotta turn your background off.
Hold on. Let me do that. Hold on. Virtual background. None. Okay. Okay. All right. I think we got it. Hold on.
Oh, nice.
So you can see it?
Yes.
All right. Hold on. I got one more. I mean, these are smaller ones. I mean, these kind of Texas, Louisiana.
Nice. Wow, so pretty. That is great. Would you let us maybe post it on the Instagram? I know some people are definitely interested. Steph is interested in seeing your seascape work. So maybe you can send us a picture of it. We can post it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yes. Since that's such a departure from what everybody typically sees. Yeah.
Yes. Because I definitely want to see it. Now I'm interested because you said you were going to show us today. We do have time. It's 3:56. We're ending at 4. So we do have time for one more question. If anybody is interested in asking one more question, you can just chime in.
I did change it so people are allowed to unmute themselves.
Okay.
I forgot.
People have dropped off. It's a nice small group, so I thought we could just be informal.
Okay.
Well, if anybody has a question, we'll definitely wait a minute or two. But if not, thank you so much for. Oh yes, Steph wants to. Thank you, Steph, coming in clutch. Have you traveled internationally? If so, where and how has that influenced your work?
So this is just crazy. One spring break, we took the kids to Paris, France, and I, just incredible. Museum d'Orsay, the Louvre, Versailles. I mean, just going throughout Paris. We intentionally got lost. We went into some of the little local communities, where they had all the markets, the food markets, the trade markets. It was incredible. I came back and we did the tour, and we went to Champs-Élysées where Josephine Baker performed. We saw some of the African sculptures that's in Paris. We went on the Black Tour, and I came back and I did part of my series on the new Negro, Paul Colin, who was the graphic artist for Vogue in 1927, and he did all of these images of Africans in Parisian attire. And so I sort of repurposed his art with the same kind of thematic and theme. And I did my Josephine Baker, Paris Noir, the Bronze Venus, and she was larger than the Eiffel Tower, larger than Paris, because she had that kind of personality. And then I did the new Negro image that Colin did, and then Portrait of a Negress. That's the most popular piece in the Louvre. She was an enslaved African that the Parisians finally bought her freedom and set her free. But probably the most popular African painting in the Louvre. And I did my take on that piece as well. So it was a trilogy. But I really wanted to create a whole large series on my visit to Paris, France. That's 15 years ago. Yeah, that's my international travel that impacted me, that I came away with doing some art. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, we definitely want to see more art from you in the future. We're looking forward to it. And of course, we're going to post some of your art on social media. Those seascapes, we're holding you to it. And also, if you're an artist, once again, before we close for the day, we just want to say thank you so much for attending this conversation on art and social justice. We hope that everybody had a great time. I know I did. And now I'm looking forward to eating this burger that's on the way. So if you're an artist and would like for us to post your art on social media, please reach out to us again at ODU Arts Letters on Instagram. That's ODU Arts Letters on Instagram, ODU ARTS LETTERS, no spaces. And thank you so much for coming.
Wow, Mariah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And we hope you'll keep up with us, and we'll do more of these events throughout the rest of the year.
Perfect.
Yes, y'all are
Take care,
definitely
guys.
seeing us.